Hello, I'm Divya A, Assistant Professor, ECE, AG Institute of Engineering and Technology, Mangalore. So I will be continuing with Module 5, that is Optical Networks. And in this video lecture, I will be explaining about synchronous networks, asynchronous networks, and open systems interconnection reference model. So speaking about optical network transmission modes, layers and protocols. So the endpoints of the optical network, they usually comprise network nodes and network stations. The nodes connect the fiber within the optical network, while the stations connect the optical network to the non-optical systems in the electronic domain. The nodes also provide functions that control the optical signals, whereas the stations provide the terminating points for the optical signal. The stations and nodes, therefore, is made of both optoelectronic and photonic components. Therefore, this shows that the use of a combination of both optical and electronic domains are required to communicate with each other in order to establish a connection for transmission between different segments of the optical network. So, it becomes necessary to use certain physical network structures, transmission types, rules, and protocols to make networking implementation more straightforward and also allow optical network to be upgraded with new developments. So speaking about synchronous networks, here in this figure, a schematic of the way in which the European hierarchy is multiplexed up to 140 megabits per second rate from the constituent 2 megabits per second signals is shown here in this figure. Difficulties faced with this type of multiplexing is that each 2 megabits per second transmission circuit has its own independent clock to provide for timing and synchronization. So this results in slightly different frequencies occurring throughout a network and is referred to as isochronous transmission. So, a major drawback is that extra bits are needed to be inserted at each intermediate level so as to maintain isochronous operation. So the presence of bit stuffing makes it impossible to identify and extract an individual channel from within a high bitrate transmission link. So to obtain an individual channel, the whole demultiplexing procedure must be carried out. So this process, it is both complex as well as uneconomic. And also, by having a straight 2 to 140 megabits per second multiplexing and demultiplexing capability, savings in electronic hardware and reliability could be achieved. Hence, a new fully synchronous digital hierarchy was required. This is one reason, and also by mid 1980s, due to lack of standards for optical network, the transmission systems that was produced by one manufacturer could not interconnect with systems from other manufacturers. That is, the ability to mix and match different equipment was restricted. So hence standardization towards a synchronous optical network termed SONET commenced in the United States in 1985. The deliberation of the SONET concepts in 1986 resulted in basic recommendations for a new synchronous digital hierarchy in November 1988. So these recommendations were published. But as a result of the extensive discussions between the two standard authorities, the two hierarchies are effectively the same. Hence, the synchronous optical network recommendations tend to be referred to as SONET in North America and SDH in Europe. The SONET standard, developed by ANSI, defines a digital hierarchy with a base rate of 51.840 megabit per second. That is shown in the table below. So the OC notation, this notation refers to the optical carrier level signal. Hence the base rate signal is OC1. The STS level in brackets, it refers to a corresponding synchronous transport signal from which the optical carrier signal is obtained after scrambling and electrical to optical conversion is obtained. Thus, the STS1, it is the basic building block of the SONET signal hierarchy. The STS1 frame structure shown in the figure below, it is precisely 125 microsecond, and hence there are 8000 frames per second. So this structure enables digital voice signal transport at 64 kilobits per second. The basic STS1 frame structure that we saw just now, it comprises 9 rows, each of 90 bytes, which therefore provide a total of 810 bytes or 6480 bits per 125 microsecond frame. So this results in the 51.840 megabits per second base rate. So the first 3 bytes in each row of the STS1 frame contain transport overhead bytes, and the remaining 783 bytes are designated as the synchronous payload envelope. The first column, that is 9 bytes, is used for the path overhead, and the remaining 774 bytes in the SPE constitute the SONET data payload. The transport overhead bytes are utilized for functions such as framing, scrambling, error monitoring, synchronization, and multiplexing, while the path overhead within the SPE is used to provide end-to-end communication between systems carrying digital voice, video, and other signals which are to be multiplexed onto the STS1 signal. The STS1 SPE does not have to be contained within a single frame. It may start in one frame and then end in another. And a payload pointer within the transport overhead, it is used to designate the beginning of the SPE within that frame. So this provides the flexibility required in order to accommodate different bit rates and a variety of services. So to accommodate sub-STS1 signal rates, a virtual tributary structure is defined comprising 4 rates, that is 1.728 megabits per second, which is designated as VT 1.5, 2.304 megabits per second designated as VT2, 3.456 megabits per second designated as VT3, and 6.912 megabits per second designated as VT6. The higher order multiplexing of a number of STS1 signals is important in order to achieve the higher bit rates required for wideband services. So here we see the format of the STS-N signal frame. So here in this case, the transport overhead byte of each STS1 are frame aligned to create a 3n bytes of transport overhead. The synchronous digital hierarchy as defined by the ITU-T operates in the same manner as SONET, but differs in some of its terminology. That is, in SDH, the 125 microsecond frame structure is referred to as synchronous transport module, and the base rate STM1 is 155.520 megabits per second, which corresponds to OC3 of STS3. So in STM, the available bandwidth can be reallocated to the users according to their requirement. So this is known as dynamic synchronous transfer mode, which employs circuit switching, since it is the combination of optical switching and transport technology. So dynamic synchronous transfer mode, it is a time division multiplexing strategy where the time slots are divided into control and data slots. The control slots are used for signaling purposes and are allocated to a node. The data slots are assigned dynamically for the user of data transmission. So every node is allocated a few control slots and several data slots. And if necessary, the control slots can be converted into data slots depending on traffic demand. DSTM can also support multicast, where a slot can be accessed by several nodes on a bus or ring topology. So when DSTM employs a SONET or SDH framing scheme, it extends the scheme with the dynamic reallocation mechanism that can redistribute bandwidth that is not being used by one user to another user who has a demand for it. So dynamic synchronous transfer mode technology includes both switching and also data transmission features. So therefore it can be considered as next generation of SONET or SDH. So next, coming to asynchronous transfer mode. Asynchronous transfer mode is a packetized multiplexing and switching technique which combines the benefits of packet switching and circuit switching. Asynchronous transfer mode transfers information in fixed size units called cells, where each cell contains the information identifying the source of the transmission, but which contain less data than packets. So here this is a format of an ATM cells. So in asynchronous transfer mode, the time slots are made available on demand to enable correct segmentation and assembly of different cells at the destination. Each cell contains significant information in addition to data. So as shown here, an ATM cell, it comprises of a header and payload data. It contains 48 bytes of data with 5 bytes of header information. So each single byte in the header field includes different information to identify destination, path, channel and the error control bits. So before sending ATM cells carrying user data, a virtual connection between source and destination has to be established. All connections follow the same path within the network. So during the connection setup, each control bit generates an entry in the virtual path identifier translation table to inform the destination to receive the incoming packet. Next, coming to Open Systems Interconnection Reference Model. So Open System Interconnection, that is OSI, describes a standard architecture to be used for designing networks. So this OSI model was specified jointly by the International Organization for Standardization and ITU-T. So here this shows the structure of the OSI network reference model and identifies the function of each of the 7 levels or layers. So the 7th layer, that is the application layer. So this is at the top of the hierarchy as the 7th layer. It provides a means for user to access information or utilize the network by receiving a service. So this layer, it is the main interface for the users to interact through applications with the network. And the next layer, that is the session layer. So before the session layer, we have the sixth level, that is the presentation layer. So this presentation layer, it transforms data to provide a standard interface for the application layer. So after this we have the session layer. So after application layer, presentation layer, then the session layer, which is the sixth layer. So this session layer, it controls the session between intelligent devices. It also establishes, manages and terminates the connections between the local and remote application. It also provides for either duplex or half duplex operation and establishes checkpointing, adjournment, termination and restart procedures. So the top three layers, that is the application layer, presentation layer, session layer. So all these are data driven levels or layers. Next, the fourth layer, that is the transport layer. This provides transparent transfer of data between end users. So it also controls the reliability of a specific link through flow control, segmentation or desegmentation and error control. So this means that the transport layer can keep track of the packets and retransmit those that fail. The network layer, that is the third layer or the third level, provides the functional and procedural method for transferring variable length data sequence from a source to destination via one or more network. So this network layer, it also performs network routing functions and might also perform segmentation, desegmentation and report on delivery errors. Next, the data link layer. It provides the functional and procedural mechanism to enable transfer of data between network entities and to detect and potentially correct errors that may occur in the physical layer. So it is the layer at which network bridges and switches operate. Next is the physical layer. So the physical layer, it is located at the bottom of the OSI reference model. So it defines all the electrical, optical and physical media specification for devices. So it both establishes and terminates a connection to the communication medium. So it also ensures that communication resources are effectively shared among multiple users. So that was all about OSI reference model. Thank you.